Yeah, welcome back. And of course, today is definitely very easy day for the parents because बच्चे भरपूर छुट्टियों के बाद आज अपने स्कूल की तरफ रवाना हुए. ज़ाहिर है नंबर वन थिंग इज़ यू गॉट टू बी वेरी कॉशियस इन द स्कूल एरिया, जिसमें स्पीड लिमिट्स को ज़रूर ख्याल रखिएगा. बाय द वे, अगर आप ब्रैम्पटन में देयर आर फ्यू अदर कैमराज इंस्टॉल्ड देयर. So you got to be very cautious, extra cautious. Today we wanted to talk to strategies जो बनाने वाले लोग हैं उनसे स्कूल्स से मुतालिक हम बात करना चाहते हैं. And we arranged an interview with David Valentine. He's a principal at Legion Strategies, National Public Opinion Research Firm. 11 साल का इनका तजुर्बा है कैनेडियन पोलिंग में, और ये प्रिंसिपल हैं. हंड्रेड्स ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट्स इन्होंने किए हैं म्यूनसिपल लेवल पे, प्रोविंशियल और फेडरल लेवल के ऊपर, और कैनेडियन मीडिया के ऊपर डिस्कस किए हैं बहुत सारी ऐसी बातें जो कि आम आदमी को इनके बारे में मालूम होना चाहिए. I welcome him, David Valentine. Thank you very much for being with us. Good afternoon, and how are you? Good evening.
I'm doing very well, and yourself?
Thank you very much. This is one stage where I have to change my headphone because I am going from one platform to other platform. This means now I am going to talk to somebody on the team program. Thank you very kindly for being with us. And as I said before, as a principal, Peru and grew up in Bathurst and Eglinton. Very fine area. Young and Eglinton के area में इन्होंने किया और यहीं पे principal. Now, first of all, today is, of course, it's little relaxation day for the parents, but it is little tough day for the teachers. What would you say about the back to school program?
Well, this can be a really stressful time in people's lives, not just for the parents and the teachers, of course, but also for the kids. And for some of them who are going to school for the first time, we've seen a lot of studies. Sometimes there's separation anxiety. Sometimes they're going into a new school altogether, right? When you go out of middle school, you go into high school. It can be a different environment and a bit daunting at times. But, really an interesting time of the year. And that's why we did the survey, to see what parents are thinking right now.
Thank you very much, and I believe so today. I understand a little depressed about the separation. I think that those children who are going to who went to school for the first day today, definitely it is difficult for those children and difficult for the parents. But teachers, what was the experience of the teachers? How did you feel today once the classes were in and all the students were in there?
It's one of those interesting things where we do a lot of research of parents, we do a lot of research of Canadians in general. Teachers, it's always hard to know because there's so many different cohorts and there's so many different school boards. And the experience for teachers here in Canada really differs depending on where you work and what you teach. And so we're seeing some teachers in Southwestern Ontario really raising concerns about access to special education. We're seeing teachers here in Toronto raising concerns that there's not enough teachers, that we have a teacher shortage. So really a lot of issues that are taking place in our schools right now.
Thank you very much. I was going through one report a few days ago, which was comparing some of the schools. They said the best schools are some of the private schools and, of course, the Catholic schools. But there were a lot more suggestions for the public schools, and they think that the results are not satisfactory in the public school. Would you like to say something about that report?
Well, I think one of the interesting things that we wanted to know is, what do Canadians think about public schools in Canada and public education? And so we asked them to rate, what do you think about schools in Canada? The ratings were pretty low, right? 60% of people giving us a rating that was not good or not excellent. And then we asked them, what about your local school down the street? What about that school? How do you feel about that? Canadians on the whole really like their local schools, don't like the idea of Canadian schools, but the local one is okay as far as they're concerned. But parents, really interestingly, they don't share that view. So the people who have the most information, we would think, the parents who actually have their kids there, they're the ones that are telling us the local schools, sometimes they can be a bit disappointing.
One more thing about the public schools, and once you were saying about the public schools and the local schools, I would like to have the difference, because public schools and Catholic schools, I understand that difference. So when we talk about the public school, you mean the local schools, is that right?
Well, we ask Canadians about two types of schools. Schools in Canada in general. So, if you're thinking about a school in Ottawa or Manitoba or wherever you might like, just a general school. And then we ask them to compare that to their local school, the one that their kids would actually go to. And so that's where we're seeing a real difference in scores. People don't think education is going very well across the country, but if you ask them, what about the school that's close to you? They say, well, that school's better. Not perfect, but a little better.
Mm-hmm. So it's I believe so. If I'm not wrong, it is about the convenience of the parents as well, where to drop off the children. So public schools are secular schools, school boards इनको run करते हैं. Now, one more question is, it's said that Catholic schools rating, the results, the placement of the students is better as compared to the public schools. Would you mind to add something on that?
Well, this is something that we see a lot in Ontario, and I think it's important to remember that there's lots of places in Canada where there are no publicly funded Catholic schools, right? And different provinces have different school systems. In Quebec, we have the CEGEP system, very complicated, but it works for them. They can have it. But here in Ontario, the system that we have, sometimes the Catholic schools are overperforming, and it's based on the geography where the school happens to be, and in other cases, it's really due to the fact that it's a different community. You see a lot of parents getting involved, and I know that when I was a lot younger, 20 years ago, when I was in high school, people were, especially in my group, people who were not Catholic were being sent to Catholic school because their parents thought it was a better education, right? So I think to a certain extent that trend continues now. And for some parents, even if you're not Catholic, if that's the best school, that's where your kid's going to go.
Thank you very much. One more concern is, and if you don't like it, please don't mind it. The drugs. What do you say about this drugs? Because in the school, there are drug people outside, and anybody can distinguish them. They can find them. So, what do you say about the drugs around the schools? Is it a problem for all the schools, or there are some specific school where there are more lenient, and why those people who are selling drugs, they are not identified and caught?
Well, this has been an issue for a really long time. And I know that when I was in high school, the big problem back then was alcohol and marijuana, right? And I think as drug dealers and drug criminals have gotten more sophisticated, now people are able to access more serious drugs that can do a lot more damage, right? We're thinking about opioids, we're thinking about pharmaceutical drugs that can be misused. And so, absolutely, there are going to be some places where this is a big problem, and it's usually tied to socioeconomics. Who can afford to buy these things? In some cases, you see these problems pop up in schools that are very wealthy because you have to have money to buy this. In other places, it's really, linked to crime and just socioeconomic conditions that are really poor, right? So that's the dichotomy that we have. Obviously the police are working very hard to catch drug criminals, but it can be difficult, especially when you have students themselves who have been recruited into selling drug paraphernalia, right? It's really easy to tell if a 40-year-old is in a high school. It's a lot harder to tell if there's a 16-year-old selling drugs in a high school because they look like they should be there. They look like they belong. And in some cases, it could even be a current student. So you're always going to have these challenges in policing. But as I've mentioned, we've had these challenges for a long time. It's just what's evolving now. Alcohol is less of an issue. Marijuana is less of an issue. A lot of research showing kids are smoking and drinking a lot less. But you have this minority of students who are also experimenting more with harder drugs. And that's a real problem because that's where we see really acute health concerns.
Thank you very much. And of course, it's a big concern because once in this system, if somebody is on the drugs, it's the only the on the request of that person. There are certain other departments which can kick in and do the drug treatment. Uh, m- uh, when there were marijuana or cannabis stores close to the schools, what do you think that in the previous government, in this government, or not in the Marconi's time, but previously, but now the government is taking little actions. They are taking out all the cannabis stores which are close to the schools, closing it down, or they are taking certain actions. Have the schools, principals, teachers, and the boards marked this problem that there should be no cannabis stores close to the schools?
Well, this is something that Doug Ford talked a lot about, the Premier of Ontario, of course. And, he ran on a policy of creating areas, that a safe distance between the schools and cannabis stores. And for the most part, that's what's been put in place. So there is a minimum distance now. You cannot have a store right next to a school. I think where there's problems sometimes is that you see, and this is all over Toronto as well. There are unlicensed stores. There are stores that just should not be there. Sometimes they're selling cannabis. Sometimes they're selling mushrooms. They're selling psychedelics. And the police will go in, they'll raid, they'll shut it down, and then a week later they're open again. I do think the police need to do more to address these circumstances when these pop-up stores occur or open near schools, because it's a very different notion than opening something up on downtown Toronto on Queen Street. If you have something that's near a school and there's not a license, they're not even supposed to be there, then I think absolutely go in and shut it down.
You're absolutely right, and I think so. Once we think about the providing the job to the people, on one side, our department must be very strict on it. Our intelligence must be very strict. Who's selling these drugs in the schools? On the other side, there are health. These the drugs are associated with the health issues in the kids. Mental health is involved in this. What do you say about the mental health issues in kids and in students, in teachers?
So we asked Canadians in the survey we released today, what are your top concerns? And they came back to us and they told us, 71% are concerned about bullying. That's a big issue in our schools right now. 75% are concerned about mental health. They know that something is wrong with the kids. They know that there is sometimes depression and anxiety. And we also asked about funding shortages. People are less concerned about the funding, interestingly enough. Some people think there's enough money in the system to go around. I think it's such a hard problem because we see really difficult situations, especially when we have kids who have special challenges. Kids who have autism, for instance, the system is not providing the supports. And when you're a teacher and you don't have an educational support or a support assistant to help with kids who have autism or other special needs, it can be really challenging. And sometimes, we see really disturbing incidents because there's not enough teachers in the classroom, and we all sort of know this, that nobody wants large class sizes. We want students to be able to get the right amount of attention so that they're able to succeed. But the stress for teachers is real, and I think we have to remember that. Sometimes these teachers are looking after 20 kids, sometimes they're looking after 30 kids, and in some cases 35, 36, 37. So we really do have to have some patience for the teachers who are out there.
What is the average class size? I'm surprised to know from 28 to 35. What is the average class size?
It really depends on the school board, but the new numbers that we're seeing now are that the average class size is going to be above 30 students, and that's a real
It's very
concern.
strange. I was looking at one report today, and it says that the population is not increasing. It's only the number of deaths is more than number of births. Not very many children are are born this year. On the other side, when you are talking about that, that shows me that probably the population is increasing and number of classes is gone. Is this number is increasing because of the shortage of the teacher, or having less teachers, or because of the number in the community or council is increased?
So it's a number of things. One is that we have less teachers in the system, and we're facing a crunch. It used to be we had too many teachers, and so they cut back on a number of teaching spots that you could go and study to become a teacher. Now we have the opposite problem, where a lot of teachers are retiring. A lot of teachers are aging. Most of our population is aging. We all get older every day, but we have a big group of teachers that are set to retire. So the problem is getting worse and worse. And we also have rules in place that limit how much supply teaching retired teachers can do. So all of these factors are adding up. And you're right, the birth rate is declining in Canada. We're seeing less and less kids being born. At the same time, though, we've had a big wave of immigration recently. The federal government is taking steps now. They've made some announcements about curbing immigration, slowing it down, not getting rid of it altogether, but really cutting the number of people who are coming into Canada. That's going to take some time to take effect because there's a lot of people who are already here. And in some cases, we've got wonderful economic immigrants who have come and brought their kids along for the journey. So they're entering the public schools and they're raising the attendance levels. The last problem I'll point out just very quickly, especially in the Toronto District School Board, there's a mismatch. There are some areas where there's very few kids who are coming into the neighborhood, but in other areas, the schools are packed because there's so many kids coming in. And sometimes you have an area that adds, 10 or 15 condos, and all of a sudden you go from, they're adding, 10 or 20 kids a year, they're adding 50, 60, 80 kids a year, and it becomes an issue.
I know it's taking a little longer, but my question over here is: you said all of a sudden in one area the number of the people declines, in another area the number of occupant in that area is increased. So the strength in the class is increased. Is it because certain community people, rather than integrating communities and diverse communities, there are certain people going into the certain area? Is it that kind of stuff? I mean,
So I'll give you an example. All along the Danforth, right? We all know the Danforth, where this Greek town, that whole corridor, right, from Broadview all the way to when you hit Scarborough, the Danforth, that area is losing people. There are less people living there now than ever before, and in many cases, it's because parents are there, their kids go away to university, they move out. You're seeing a population decline. You have a lot of people who are aging in that neighborhood. And in many cases, grandparents are not selling their house. They want to stay in the city. So there's two people living in a big house, which is not efficient. But if that's what you want to do and that's your retirement plan, hey, that's the life you built for yourself. Why not? Then you have areas like Yonge and Steeles, Yonge and Finch, where,
so
they are
many condos
adding
are coming.
all of these buildings.
Yeah.
And the kids at Yonge and Finch, by the way, if you buy a condo there right now, there's a big sign in front of the condo that tells you your kids will not be able to go to school in that neighborhood. They are going to put them on a bus and they're going to bus them for 30, 40, 50 minutes to get them to school because there is no school in that area that can take them at this point.
My last question is: there's a saying that monkey see, monkey do.
Yes.
In this age, 21st century, even two kins are getting apart. Polarization is very common. We don't have a patience to listen to others or understand others, which results sometime in the bullying. And of course, the criminal activities are also increased. What do you say about the bullying in the school? People don't have, even the students, they don't have a patience. Sometimes political rifts go into the school. Sometimes the other power things, the gangsterism. So the bullying. And then these students have their role models, the films, leaders of the world, they have seen bullying each other. So how the kids are reacting? What is the bullying? There was a time we used to listen bullying in the schools, but I think now everybody and anybody can say bullying around the world, everywhere. So what are the results
Yeah.
in the schools?
Well, I remember when I was in high school and Facebook had just come out. And so, that was the big thing is now you could have a Facebook account. You compare that to kids today who have cell phones, who have Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat. Instagram, and now the bullying doesn't just take place in the actual classroom or the actual school. It also takes place online, right? And people can create anonymous accounts, they can leave nasty comments. And keep in mind, a lot of the content that goes viral, that's really popular on some of these apps, is edgy content. It's sort of rude content, right? And so, as you said, monkey see, monkey do. Kids are seeing, oh, this is going viral, right? I should make a similar video. I should do that to someone in my school. So it can be really tough because there's a lot of people who are out there in politics right now, whether it's south of the border or here at home, might be very effective people, but they're not very nice people. And we have to wonder what kind of example they're setting for others right now. But all that being said, it's a really tough situation. A lot of parents very concerned about bullying. It was the top issue of concern in our survey that we released today. And there's no easy solution for this because it's not just up to teachers or principals. What do you do when the bullying is also online, right? And all of a sudden, it used to be you could go home from school and the bullying would stop because there's no one there to bother you anymore. But now, with your cell phone and these social media accounts, the bullying can follow you home.
Thank you very kindly, Principal David Valentine, for your time, and I wish, if you can give me again times, there must be some tips by the school for the parents. If we could get you and request you to be with us again. Thank you very kindly for
Of
your
course.
time.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you. Take care very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.